welcome to episode 19 of Divine Superconductor Radio. Today I'm interviewing Antonio Matos of Faradays. So he actually invented these EMF blocking briefs that are unfortunately exclusively for men, which is why I'm making this a bonus episode. Very targeted audience. I know a lot of women listen to this show. But for men that drive a lot, that are always on the go, that are leaving the house, we get hammered, and the non-native electromagnetic fields specifically hammer the reproductive organs of both men and women. So I asked him if he's going to provide women's options, and he said maybe in the future, but I'm sure there'll be a ton of companies as this thing grows and awareness grows. But to block the testes from non-native electromagnetic radiation actually enhances testosterone production, because when the EMFs hit different parts of the body, for example, the brain, not just 5G, but Wi-Fi and all of the types of radiation, dirty electricity, we're talking about changing neurotransmitters, we're talking about creating inflammation, swelling the cell with calcium, and disrupting the DNA, all sorts of stuff. So just to protect that area can really help men to keep their immune system strong, keep their motivation strong, and their productivity. And I've definitely noticed a difference. These are the only thing I wear, and they're incredible. So Antonio will break it down for you in this show. Enjoy. Welcome to Divine Superconductor Radio. I'm here with Antonio Matos of Faradays. Welcome to the show.
So happy to be here.
Awesome. Me too. So your product is really, really interesting to me because I've been studying electromagnetic fields for almost a decade now.
Yeah.
And I started with grounding and quickly.
You're a pioneer.
Oh, you are too, man. Thank you. Yeah, and I think EMFs are one of the things that's, there's so much misinformation and disinformation about EMFs. And, I came from kind of the New Age community, and what frustrates me the most is here, slap this, Merkaba or sacred geometry sticker on your phone, or
right.
Orgonite, and all these things that I think are actually harmful to people's health because it's not helping, and it's giving people a false sense of security. So I'm about really finding like practical solutions that actually work. And the sad thing is people in the mainstream, when they hear all this BS about electromagnetic fields and non-native EMFs, they roll their eyes and they say, oh, that's conspiracy jargon and garbage. It's because you have all these spiritual people that have no idea about physics. They haven't looked at the studies. They aren't sharing hardcore research. And to me, I think it's dangerous. So I want to do my part to share, actual accurate information. And so, I was really drawn to your product, and I use it every day. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, we really appreciate you as an early supporter. To get a company of our nature off the ground in an industry that is nascent is when we love it, and we're so grateful that we're able to speak to your audience about our journey and about EMFs and how our product works and reduces exposure to your most important assets. Really, if you look at the studies, the Naval Medical Institute released a study recently, unclassified it, showing all of the effects on most parts of the body, but the most vulnerable are besides the eyes, the ball sack, the scrotum, the jewels, and that's what we're protecting. We're very happy to speak about it.
Yeah, it's really funny. I think you and I have both been in the biohacking space, and it's funny that the testes focused, because everyone's obsessed with red light on the nuts, and now there's these, and it's funny, all these products kind of centered around the testes. Probably probably get some people worked up that are social justice warriors. No, but we need strong males. That's what I've been sharing on Instagram. Is I think there's a there's a definite agenda to emasculate and castrate the male in multiple ways. But I think one of the biggest ways is by raising estrogen and tanking testosterone. And that's really what happens on like a vegan diet, like high in unsaturated fats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Pre-Faraday's, pre-development of our product, we were looking at a lot of trends, and me personally was also kind of going through this personal evolution in New York at grad school, where I noticed my electro hypersensitivity and was able to, at least I thought, was able to know prior to when my phone was going to buzz, and thought it was some psychic knowledge as I was going through like this spiritual awakening from my previous background in China, where I was 7 years and having to reassimilate back into the American culture, and kind of processing all of this through lots of experiences with things like ayahuasca and other experimentation. And so there are all of these sort of factors going on in my life personally, as well as in society at large. And I was noticing my testosterone levels were lower. I was not able to perform as well in the gym. I wasn't as confident. Partly was because I was at school and not able to sort of do things and more just study things. But that's where I was able to do a lot of research on and an observation on society and EMFs, and was noticing it's clear that there's a fundamental shifts going on in terms of manlyhood and what masculinity means. And so and I've come to the conclusion that I think it's driven a lot by our biology and hormones. And as a result, we have less masculine traits that have been traditionally identified with being masculine, like more muscular bodies. Maybe that has something to do with diet. Definitely has something to do with diet and other stuff like that. But all of that stuff was saturated, and I was looking for something that could have huge impact, and that would be fun, and that would keep my brain stimulated. And so when I found out about my psychic knowledge of when my phone was going to ring, was actually my body experiencing a subtle sort of change right before my phone would buzz, that I discovered that phones don't work by magic. They use energy that we can't smell or see, or but we can feel. Some of us can feel, and so I started looking into it. And that's when I discovered all the studies, man, showing the effects on testosterone, the effects on sperm, and and then kind of linking that to the infertility trends that are happening in Western countries and more in everywhere, as phones and technology saturates and 5G takes hold of the other cities. Although there is Brussels last week just stopped 5G from being experimented from experimenting on their citizens there, and there was also a local story here in Manteca in California, a small town, that was a huge story, but not really past the 50,000 population of the city. And Sprint, the telecommunications company, basically admitted that their towers cause cancer, because they have removed the towers near the schools that 3 teachers and a couple students had developed cancer from. So to me, the trends are clear. Hormones are dropping, fertility is dropping, and EMF is the factor which is overlooked and is not being considered, and which needs to be exposed more. And that's why we built Faraday's and created a product that reduces exposure to your testes.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that was a great explanation. So much there. I like what you said about cell phones and how they don't work just on magic. My friend recently taught me how to actually go through and change the settings, because the smartphones are really bad. I mean, we're not dealing with flip phones anymore. We have Android and iPhone, and she explained it to me like there's multiple antennas, and
Yeah.
everything you have turned on is like flipping on another antenna. And so one of my biggest tricks has just been to go to privacy and turn off location services when I'm not using the GPS, like when
Hmm.
I'm not going somewhere new. And I feel it in my hand, like it doesn't burn my hand as much when I hold the phone.
Right. I mean, so the cell phone companies are required by law to disclose the SAR, which is the levels, which is a totally bogus measure. It's a totally bogus metric because it was done like in the 80s and 90s and by engineers who aren't doctors and had really no idea how this energy was affecting the body because they never did studies, and they were actually studying the heat of the tissue, and but the changes to the cells are on a level that's so small and minuscule. The thing is that over time it causes lots of damage that we don't have the tools really to measure the heat. There is actually an energy change, but we describe it as non-thermal effects. But there is an energy change, and we could be able to measure that, by the heat or other things, but we just don't have the tools to do that. And what we only have are the data and the outcomes, and that's why industry it continues to operate as they do. But if we read the law how it is written, us holding our phone or touching the phone, it would be illegal because the phone is not supposed to be touching your skin. It's supposed to be held a certain distance away from your body, and when we're holding it, that's illegal. The phone companies should be held liable for that. And what is really interesting and was actually the deal maker for us getting into Faraday's and starting with the product was that the reinsurance companies who insure the insurance companies who insure the industry, the telecom and the telecoms and the cell phone industry, they actually don't cover health claims that are made by consumers, that are made by individuals who blame or link their health issue to a cause caused by phones or radiation, like a headache or cancer or anything, anxiety.
That's ridiculous. And I've heard about supplement manufacturers doing that as well. I just interviewed a microbiologist about probiotics and the probiotic
Mm-hmm.
industry, which is full of just nonsense. And
Yeah.
he was saying they really cover their ass basically by putting on the bottle at time of manufacture there were this many, count CFU of probiotics. But it doesn't mean that when you buy it there's that many. So if they get sued, if someone tests it, they're protected because they say no, when we bottled it there were this many. So it's so funny how
Mm-hmm.
companies, that just want to make a buck find ways to kind of get around the legal issues.
Right.
One thing I thought of as you were talking about the phone is Ethernet hardwiring. It seems to be the best solution. Like you can actually get there's different companies that make it, but I have hardwired the phone before, just direct to the wall. And I mean, you're connected with a cord, but
Mm-hmm.
that's a way to reduce the EMFs to almost nothing because you're not running on cellular, which is kind of cool. So I just wanted to share that tip because it's helped me in the past.
Uh, it's such a better. It's so much better that it's a no brainer because not only is it safer on your body, which really isn't like it's something that the government is really focusing on it, but it's also safer in terms of like cybersecurity because that energy that's in the air, those waves, that information is traveling in the air and can be captured by anybody and and used to do anything with it, right? They have that information, although everything's recorded now, right? But it's also cheaper and much faster, so much faster. The Ethernet.
I grew up reading Brave New World in 1984, and it seems like we're living in a mash of those two worlds right now, especially the 1984. I mean, we almost have no privacy. Like, I sent, my DNA to 23andMe. I'm like, maybe have a clone walking around on Mars. I don't know what they did with that. Same
Yeah.
thing with all the texts we send. I mean, Facebook, Zuckerberg. I mean, we know, who owns all these things, and it's like it's kind of scary when you think about it. But then again, they're probably just watching the people at the top.
Yeah, well, more power to them though, because they have built in our system. They are the kingpins, and it's very easy to kind of knock the guys on top, right? And although I was having a conversation the other day at an event to learn more about marketing, and we leverage these things to reach customers. And one of the comments I made was because I am a bit anti-tech, although without tech we wouldn't exist. So we like to be complementary to tech, but ultimately. It would be a much better environment if, I'd love to live on Mars. That'd be cool. But out in nature and and whatnot. But in order to get there, there has to be, it's like 100-year journey and 100-year commitment that I've sort of signed up for with Faradays, and and. Yeah. So the comment that I made was that Facebook is spending all of this money in Washington to write new laws and change the laws and get involved with how our data is used and leveraged. And the comment that the Facebook representative made was that what they're probably not spending enough. And I thought he's probably right. He's probably right. Given our system, given the way the rules are written. Whoever has the most money and writes the rules basically has the most influence on our lives and how we live, really.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, for me, the censorship is going on a little tangent, but it's fine. But the recent vaccine censorship, like Netflix took down the documentary Vaxxed, and Instagram accounts are getting taken down. And I'm watching all this, and I think that's where it's dangerous, is where the flow of free information is being stopped. That's where I'm against it.
Yeah. I'm noticing weird things on Facebook, and I have to make notes because it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to articulate, really.
Yeah.
Like the observations and the kind of things that I've noticed just using the internet, and I kind of don't really want to talk about it because it might sound too crazy. But there's definitely weird stuff going on the internet.
Yeah.
With what is it, spying or whatever they're doing.
It's funny, something as simple as what almost everyone does every day, being on Instagram on your phone. Not only do you have the artificial blue light, but you have the dopamine hit, and you have the EMFs. And then you have the privacy thing. There's so many things to kind of mitigate and watch out for when you're using your phone. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I've just started getting back into social media, and I find that I like it. Every time there's a like or a comment, I'm like, yes, it feels good. It really does. And I'm probably becoming addicted on some level and seek more of those feelings. But being, involved in the health community, I'm aware of those things. So, I make sure that I do other things to mitigate the risk of, being too addicted, and making sure to get out into the sun and going on nature trips and whatnot.
Yeah, that's the best remedy I've found. I mean, I try to take one day off a week, and that generally works for me. Just taking a whole day off of social media. So going back to what you said about tools to measure, a lot of these meters, because I started with a tri-field meter, which I think is kind of garbage. It's not really accurate. I mean, maybe for like a ballpark, but I think moving on to radio frequency meters, RF meters, magnetic field meters, and I prefer digital to analog, like the little needle.
Sure.
But when you get into something to measure like 5G, from what I've researched, you're spending $1,000 plus, right, for a meter like that.
Yeah. So I don't think there are any 5G meters on the market.
I've heard Matt Maruka talk about one, but I forget what it was called.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd love to learn more about it. But we had our fabric tested in scientific laboratories, and which cover 5G up to 50 gigahertz. And so there are a few 5G frequencies that might be used in some places that are above 50 gigahertz. I don't know where, but I suspect our fabric also blocks, because it increases its the fabric effectiveness gets better as the frequency goes up, actually. And so we're fully certified, and our fabric is only used in the pouch, which is something new. And there have been quite a few concerns on why we didn't use the fabric throughout the whole product. And we did a lot of research on this, and were advised that actually, and this has repercussions also for the future development of EMF protection clothing, but that your body's natural biofield can be disrupted by clothing, by wearing conductive clothing. And so from a business standpoint as well, it only made sense to protect the balls, because that's really the only area in that area of the body which are the biggest threat. And so that's what we did. And there was also concern of radiation, getting into the pouch and increasing your exposure. And that doesn't happen. That is not sound science, because energy cannot be it just cannot be increased without another sort of. It just doesn't make sense from a logical standpoint. It doesn't increase. What actually happens is that the electromagnetic coupling, which happens at the reflection. So an electromagnetic wave, and this is also depending on the specific frequency, but in general, across the main frequencies like 2, 3, 4, and up into 5G, there'll be an electromagnetic coupling that happens on the surface, on the outer surface of the fabric. And our fabric is duplexed, which means that it has two different sides, and each side serves a different purpose. And the outer side serves the purpose of blocking and preventing the electromagnetic wave from getting inside the pouch. And when the electromagnetic wave comes into contact with the outer fabric, the surface of the fabric goes through what's called a polarization, and the electrons are changed on the end. We have a video coming up actually on our website that explains this like much better than I am now in like a minute. But what happens is the wave is blocked, and it neutralizes the inside of the pouch, and so no increases of radiation happens inside the pouch, and the EMFs that are being emitted from that area of the body, which has not been tested, is from our understanding, from what we've been advised from the top EMF experts in the world, is not a threat, or not a risk to health. And so the same way that you sleep in a Faraday canopy is when your body EMFs won't leave the canopy. The same sort of concept with the pouch there, and so we're very excited to be evangelizing this concept. And a lot of competitors will say that our product doesn't shield, but it does shield, and people can test with their own meters because it does shield. And there really isn't a true Faraday cage, so I'm not a scientist, I'm not a physicist, but everything has some level of conductivity, right? So unless you're like floating in midair without any contact, but you're in contact with the air, right? And that's somewhat connected to the inner the inside of the Faraday cage. So, with a product that's all electromagnetic shielding fabric, that's also not a true Faraday cage, because there's openings for the leg and there's openings for the waist, and so and it's also potentially higher risk for not allowing the natural ebb and flow of your biofield to kind of function properly.
That was an awesome explanation, and that makes sense. Yeah, I think the whole Faraday cage thing, I was wrapped up into that for a while, and I'm still trying to find a good mitigation for, when you go to a conference and you're at the Hilton and you're 20 stories up or 30 stories up in a hotel room, because I personally get thrashed and I feel it. And I've heard people like Mercola talking about sleeping in a Faraday sleeping bag, and then I've talked to geniuses like Dave Stetzer, and he says, no, that's not good, because like you said, it messes up the biofield. And so, I think your product's a really practical way to do it. And that's fascinating that it has two different sides. I didn't know that. And I see a lot of people, I just want to bring up this point, driving electric cars. And I drove a Chevy Volt for a year and a half, and I see people obsessed with the Tesla, which I think is a total abomination. I don't think electric cars should be promoted or driven. I think a lot of the vegan people are actually promoting it because it goes along with their Agenda 2030 infertility message. But the electric cars are the worst for the EMFs, right? Because that's you're in a microwave oven. And then I guess one behind is a hybrid car. And then I've heard really the safest cars are you go back to like 70s, like the old school cars. But I think practically, I would say avoid electric cars. And if you're in one, definitely have Faradays on. Sure.
Yes, I love the sound of a 1970, 8-cylinder 350 block, right? I mean, that's great. I mean, it's so nostalgic and vibratory for your girlfriend in the passenger seat. But with these newer cars, there's all the electronics, right, in the car, and so all of those internal devices are, in addition to your phone and whatever you're wearing on your wrist or fingers, are emitting, and so you're not protected unless you have a blanket over you, or you have something in front of whatever, because the electromagnetic waves, in a two-dimensional sort of model, travel in a straight line. But we live on a. I guess most people think we live on a globe, and so maybe they're somewhat curved, just depending on where your frame of reference is. But they don't kind of like squeamish and kind of at the same intensity, because it kind of behaves like visible light.
Interesting. Okay. It's funny. I just saw a YouTube video. This not to bash on the vegans, but it was a vegan guy, and he was in a Tesla. And it was just a quick 2-minute video, and he was taking the meter when the Tesla was parked, and then when it was taken off, he's like, "Look, there's no EMFs." And I think he was just measuring the magnetic field, but I'm like, dude, what about the RF field or the electric field? There's people really need to get this, that EMFs isn't just one thing; it's a category, and under that there's dirty electricity, there's electric, there's magnetic. There's multiple different types, right? So,
Nick Pineault has a really good book on this, and I suggest everyone to get that and to read that. Although it's a bit outdated now, the science is accumulating.
How do you spell his name?
I think it's P-I. Yeah, so I'll type it in the
P-E-N-E. I feel like I've heard of him.
Yeah, you should have him on your show, man. I don't know.
Nick Pineault.
I think it's something like that.
Let's see. Okay, Pineault. Okay, I'm sure that'll come up if people search. Yeah. So he's written a book on EMFs?
Yes. He wrote a very sort of very basic for dummies, right? For kind of beginners, but he simplifies everything, because what you can find online and what you read in like journals and reports is all extremely it's very complicated.
Yeah.
And he puts it in a way that it's easy to understand and to talk about with others who don't have like the specialized knowledge of like physics concepts, which are which are kind of just equations and not just by humans, created by humans, and not necessarily, definitely not true, right? Whatever. There's always something truer.
Well said. Yeah. I think there's just basic things to understand with EMFs. Like my friend Brandon on the Blue Shield interview I had, he brought up the inverse square law. And it's like most people that are talking about EMFs have never, ever heard that phrase. And it very simply means that instead of holding the phone in your hand, when you're talking to someone on the phone, use a selfie stick or keep it away from you, because the distance from these devices, really, it drops off dramatically as you move further away from it. But the scary thing is, like what you have on your website, 5G, that doesn't apply, right? That's just, you can't really escape 5G besides moving to a more rural area. So, do I have that right?
Yeah. So phones should not be in your pocket ever. And when you're using them in front of your ball sack, you should have Faradays on. That's for sure. But 5G, 5G, man, it's already here. What can we do? So what do we want to stop it? Yes. How? Rally, but it just doesn't. The people are so the people who are aware of the 5G health effects are too small, and they're unorganized, and something like an event that catches the attention of the world probably has to happen, or like aliens have to land. I'm kidding, but no, people should go to the doctor when they have an issue that's caused by their phone and say, my phone is giving me anxiety, or my phone is causing me headaches. And if you have, some sort of cancer developing, you should really look into if it's caused by electromagnetic frequencies.
Yeah. For me, the scariest part and the most damaging is the emotional effect, because I think when you're on a fat soluble deficient, protein deficient, carb restricted diet, and you add in EMFs and you sleep with your Wi-Fi router on, that's where you get things like depression, anxiety, and eventually suicide. I mean, I've read stuff online where people with electrosensitivity, I mean, not to, put scare stuff out there, but it really does affect the mind and the emotions, right? It could really it could make arguments with your spouse. I mean, we have super high divorce rates right now, and I think the EMFs are a big part of that.
Yeah. So I don't know how to respond to that, but so are we becoming? And then we're all dumbed down now we're all numbed. Not all of us, but a large majority of the population, are taking pharmaceuticals, and so that's affecting the way we think. And I definitely believe that electromagnetic frequencies change our thoughts. If an electromagnetic wave hits your arm, that's sending an impulse to your brain. That's a change, right? That can be measured, and that has some change on your thoughts. So to say that is not crazy. And to the level, the degree of how it changes your thoughts, I think is something that should be practiced. And sort of, when you're aware of that sort of thing, you can do a better job of controlling your mind and sort of noticing how it works, and being more self-aware. And that requires, I do a lot of meditation and a lot of reflection, and I make that a priority, at least 30 minutes a day, sometimes up to an hour before I go to bed. I'm meditating and kind of set up what I do for the next 8 hours, which is, kind of out of your conscious control. But right before you go to bed, you can control at least how you begin to sleep, which, has a cascade effect on the rest of sleep. So I highly recommend to, right before going to bed, thinking, not doing anything that's going to give you dreams and make your brain work in ways that you don't want it to. And to also do the opposite. If you're having a problem, and think about how to solve it, and right before bed, and then your dreams will help you. And when you wake up in the morning, I write my dreams down, all of them, all of the ones that I remember, and analyze them, and it helps me learn a lot about myself.
That's really cool, man. I got into lucid dreaming when I was 12, and I
Hmm.
recorded a ton of dreams. I think I've had like 10 lucid dreams that I vividly remember, but now I end the day with virtual reality Oculus Rift. I do a horror show before bed. No,
Well,
I'm just kidding. I'm just
zombies, yeah.
kidding. That's the scariest thing to me. Strapping, I did it once in my life, strapping the phone to your face with the
Hmm.
EMFs and the blue light going right in. That's a
Man,
crazy technology. But going
yes.
back to 5G, I like on your website, I think it's on, yeah, it's on the main page when you scroll down. Um, Scrotums are vulnerable, and you have 1G, 2G, 3G, and then you go up to 5G, and the average sperm counts, testosterone levels, and erectile dysfunction, and the numbers just go up, right?
Yeah,
As you
as
reach
the
this.
as the power levels of tech and the penetration of tech goes up, the effects on sperm, the effects on testosterone, and the and the rates of ED, and those ED numbers are probably, because there's a spectrum of ED, right? Like how rigid, um, and and so a lot of that isn't reported, right? And so I suspect that number is much higher. And so those testosterone numbers are gathered from a number of different studies, as are the sperm fertility numbers. But I think for people like you're probably fine, because you're out in the sun and you're healthy, and you're not the average American who is uh, you know not healthy, sick. Really, they're sick, and so. Yeah, when 5G comes into play, as it is now, those it's you. How do what's the logical prediction, right? I mean, damn.
Yeah, really good point on ED. That's probably something a lot of men don't like to admit. But I think that that ties in with divorce rates and just relationships not working out, and um,
Hmm.
rise of feminism, all this stuff, which is
Right.
totally contrived. But um, yeah, no, that's super interesting. And just going back to your point on meditation, and I didn't mean to brush over that. I think I've shared this in previous shows. Not stressing about 5G and EMFs is like the starting point, because you can hear about all this stuff and read the studies and listen to us talk about all the dangers, but
Hmm.
just don't stress about it, because we are
Yeah.
powerful. Our thoughts do affect our biology. And so it's really important to have like a mindfulness practice, or go out. I like going out hiking into nature. That's my way to do it.
Yeah, it's that's my biggest challenge, is limiting stress and finding balance in my life as an entrepreneur. Um, so and eating healthy as well, because sometimes I'll just go the whole day and forgetting to eat, and then I'll just not eat healthy, or just eat too much right before bed or something. But yeah, totally.
Yeah. Jerky and honey, or jerky and fruit.
Hmm.
That's to me has been really good entrepreneur diet. It's been working for me.
Yeah,
um,
coconut oil
yeah,
in the morning, or raw eggs, or I do a cocktail of vinegar and what's the Indian stuff that I put in there? Turmeric and black
nice,
pepper, and just take a shot of that, and
nice.
keeps my mind straight.
That's awesome. I love it. One thing I wanted to go back to is towers, and I've seen like my buddy Justin with Extreme Health Radio. He's posted stories on Instagram of schools, going on a walk, and it's so sad to me. This is one of the most malicious, sinister things. They're hiding towers, right? And these buildings get paid, especially schools and churches
Hmm.
get paid for them to install these towers, and they get a monthly check, right? And so
Yeah.
these poor children. I mean, I used to be a substitute teacher, and it's kind of like a human factory farm. I mean, these children don't have a choice. They're drinking hard tap water with cocktail of chemicals. They're eating a cocktail of chemicals. They're breathing a cocktail of chemicals. I mean,
Uh-huh.
they're just from every angle. the children are getting hit. And to me, that's the part that really gets me wound up the most.
Totally, but the parents work in tech and they rely on these industries, right, to support their families. And without an underlying industry that can replace those jobs, although artificial intelligence, of course, will replace those jobs, and I think over time, eventually, the system is changing, and I don't know if there's going to be a breaking point, but it's evolving, and the industry is just too strong, and parents are just, I guess, not as aware to make a big enough fuss to the schools. There are schools in San Francisco and schools in European cities that are restricting Wi-Fi use in classrooms, and there is government regulation on this. And there's a senator in Michigan who brought up 5G, Rosenthal, and but there's just not enough sort of oomph behind it, and so it just doesn't pick up steam. And then there's the whole U.S.-China competition, right? And so economically and just in terms of like international relations, the United States needs or wants, or why though I don't understand, to maintain their superiority as a country. And so, that's probably the driving factor of why we're expediting 5G before, having a chance to understand what the fuck it's doing to our body.
Yeah, that's a really good point. What would you say is more damaging, 5G or Wi-Fi? Because I lean more towards 5G, right? But I mean, they're both damaging.
Well, it depends on how close you are, right? And the wireless routers those antennas kind of spray in multiple directions, but the 5Gs are kind of more line of sight, and it just depends on the distance. But Wi-Fi, your Wi-Fi is also damaging, totally. But there is science showing that waves can be biocompatible.
I have an article up here. I found Li-Fi. Have you heard of that? It's an alternative to Wi-Fi. It's called Light Fidelity, and it's basically Wi-Fi but using light. So it's kind of cool. I think that's a great alternative. I just recommend people unplug their router at night, or you can get this little remote thing on Amazon for $20 called Zap Remote, and you just press a button at your nightstand and you turn the router off at night. But to me, that's like the most logical starting place with EMF, is like, don't sleep in your own Wi-Fi signal. You might be sleeping in your neighbor's, but the worst offender, like you said, is right next to you. It's the distance.
Yeah, totally. I got to look into this Li-Fi stuff. That sounds awesome.
There's so much information out there. Yeah, so it's hard to find time to look into it all, but I hear bits and pieces. And I think with EMFs, that when people roll their eyes and look at me like I'm a conspiracy theorist, I say voltage gated calcium ion channels. Just look that up. And that's really what EMFs do. They stress the cell and calcium floods in. And that really throws off every function of the cell. It's really bad. Lowers ATP production and all that. So
yeah, but that's like what was studied. Martin Pall studied that in extreme detail, and so he was able to present that and illustrate that. But there's very likely a lot of things happening, a lot of different things that are happening that we just don't know about, that we haven't studied because there's no funding for this type of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Jumping to hormones, we talked a little bit about hormones and fertility. I see on your website, testosterone is mentioned a lot, especially for men, but also progesterone. And that's been a hormone that I've been studying, because I think people have the false idea that estrogen is the female hormone, but it's actually progesterone. And both men and women have estrogen dominance, and that can be caused by the oxidation of polyunsaturated fatty acids being released from the tissues, and so many things. But circulating estrogen is one of the worst things for human health when it's in excess and out of balance. And progesterone is really the antidote to estrogen. So that really piqued my interest when I saw the word progesterone on your site and the EMFs. I mean, I'm not surprised, but it's just interesting to piece that together in the puzzle, because progesterone is super, super important for both men and women. It's an anti-stress thing. So
Right. There's a ton of research on our website. If anyone wants to go to, how electromagnetic radiation affects men's health, we have a ton of information there to see how it affects fertility, how it affects testosterone and these other hormones that you mentioned. As testosterone and progesterone like decreases, by default, estrogen also increases, right? And so there are all these like cascade effects, which are the second and third order effects of what EMFs cause. And cancer is like the thing that's been studied probably second most to the head, but male cancers is also another issue that's rising, and should be studied more. There's a biomarker called 8-OHDG, which indicates oxidative DNA damage, and that biomarker. So I did a one-off study, and that 8-OHDG decreased with my wearing of Faraday's. Maybe it was because I was drinking cleaner water. I don't know, but it wasn't controlled. Although I think more people should be measuring that biomarker and showing how it changes based on healthier life and less cell phone use.
What's the biomarker called again?
8-OHDG, and there's also another one. I think it's deoxo.
I remember highly HSCRP is pretty huge. Mine used to be through the roof when I was living in EMF hell, and I think cold therapy reduced that.
Really? Okay.
C-reactive protein.
8-OXO-DG it is.
Okay. There's so many things to test. I mean, I know people that are obsessed with blood tests, and I did Insight Tracker once, but yeah, that's a whole rabbit hole, right? All the blood markers and
it can be measured by urine through the Dutch kit, the Dutch test, the Dutch testing, and Planet Naturopath actually sells those. And Michael Smith is a buddy of mine. He runs that website, and those tests are available there. And you guys should get some.
That's super fascinating. Really cool. I had a question. Does this protect against? Do the Faradays protect against all types of EMF? Because anything less than, on your website, you say 50 decibels, 5 megahertz to 50 gigahertz. Does that include radio frequency, electric, magnetic, dirty electricity? Does that question make sense?
Yeah. Let's see. So does it include dirty electricity? What frequencies? What frequencies are we talking about when you mentioned dirty electricity?
I guess it'd be like 60 hertz. I think that's the standard in America. I would imagine it would, because that's a pretty wide range of what it's protecting from.
Mm-hmm. So like power lines.
Power lines, yeah.
So I mean, the power lines really aren't a sort of.
Well, I guess I mean the wires in the wall. Like, again, that's technically what dirty. It's like stray voltage, high frequency, transient harmonics in the wall. So basically, like, I guess when we switch to dimmer switches and devices that switch from AC to DC super fast, I guess that creates extra voltage. This has been studied by Mark Stetzer and others. I think the answer is yes. I mean that's a pretty wide range of what it covers, the shield tech.
So the electronic labs the scientific labs that we tested in, we did not test those frequencies because they aren't really a risk, I suspect. We should cut that.
I'll do it. No worries. Yeah, I was just curious. Yeah, but it's
we're really focused on I'll check that.
No, that's no problem. Yeah, I'll cut that part because Yeah, I'm super nerdy. I have some like little technical questions. So let me know though. I'm curious.
Sure.
um, let me see. Start at okay. Um, so I wanted to talk about the product. So the Shield Tech fabric is silver enmeshed, like it's silver throughout it. Is that what it's built from, or?
Yeah, it's made with silver fibers, and so the silver fibers, and these are all protected by patents. And it was actually the fabric was first developed. At least the concept for the fabric was first developed for use in military applications to
Wow.
prevent for like cybersecurity, and we did a few iterations on that to make it softer and more suited for wear on people, and implemented the antibacterial aspects, which also kill odor, and the fabric's also mixed with spandex, so it stretches, and also thermodynamic, so that the airflow is can go through the fabric to keep you cool when it's hot and to keep you warm when it's cold.
I love it. That's cool. Yeah, I went to a health conference last year, and there's a company selling silver handkerchiefs. Like, instead of washing your hands in tap water when you go to the bathroom, you could just wipe silver on your hands. And
Mm-hmm.
I think silver products are super fascinating. I make my own colloidal silver here at home, and the applications for that, I mean, my eyes have been burning in the past. I spray colloidal silver, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Bug bites, stings, burns, it's gone. It's like
Mm-hmm.
silver is a really fascinating metal. Super cool.
It is. It's one of the most conductive metals on Earth, and and it's a valuable metal as well.
Yeah.
So it's it's great. I mean, we love it.
um, yeah, it's super comfortable too. And it's organic bamboo, right? Throughout the boxer.
Yeah, the rest of the product is made with bamboo. That's right, organic bamboo from the Sichuan province in China,
Wow.
and that bamboo is eventually spun into, we have to call it viscose in the American market because of political reasons, but yeah, it comes from organic bamboo. That's the raw material.
I love it. Yeah, that's super cool. I try to tell people to stay away from polyester because I think I grew up with, you know, there's plastic in a lot of our clothing, and
Mhm.
that's a really bad thing. And usually these, when it's super stretchy, I just like that your product. I mean, there's not that endocrine disrupting effect because it's
Mhm.
mostly organic bamboo, right? So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so the consumer tests that we're required to do prove that there's no lead, and there's no maybe there's something in the air when you take it out of the bag that gets stuck onto the fabric, but if it's bacterial, it'll be killed by the bamboo as well, which is also antibacterial. Um, and so in terms of like these identified endocrine disruptors, of what we know, there are none that are apparent in the fabric, and the fabric is used by lots of companies in the yoga industry for like leggings and things like that.
interesting. Yeah, it's funny. I grew up actually wearing just regular underwear briefs. It's just
Hmm.
what my parents raised me on. And so to switch to a boxer brief type thing, I was like, oh, this is going to take a while to get used to, but it's super comfortable. And I wear them every day,
Hmm.
especially if I'm driving down the mountain because I live in the boonies. But when I'm going into like a major city like San Diego or LA, I make it like a point to only wear those when I'm in a heavy EMF environment, and I feel the difference. I feel
Hmm.
a lot better. Um, one thing I wanted to talk about is, and I'm familiar with this from earthing products like grounding sheets with silver threads,
Yeah.
is washing them in the washer. And it's my understanding that essential oils, like that are in a lot of natural detergents you would buy at Sprouts or whatever, actually destroy the conductivity over time. And so I'm just curious if you've um, heard of like Y Shield Text Care, because that I use like this
Mhm.
EMR protection. I spend a little more, but it's like this liquid that's supposed to protect the conductivity. And so I have special detergent just for your product, and I just wash all the briefs together in one load with this stuff, and it extends the life. It's kind of cool. So
Yeah. Yeah, there are those detergents that are made specifically for conductive materials, but the probably the most effective way to extend the life of the entire garment, and the conductivity doesn't really. I mean, there may be some oxidation to the silver over time, but the best way to prevent that is to wash it by hand and to air dry, and that's the most environmental solution and cheapest solution.
that's cool. Yeah, well, I'm into like not doomsday prepping, but just prepping. It's fun for me, survival, all that stuff. And I found this like hand crank washer. If the grid went down, it's just it's this white thing with the crank. And I figure if I make my own silver, I can filter water, I can wash my clothes in silver, and then just hang dry them. So
yeah, totally. I mean, you really don't even need to use soap. You can just rinse them, and because they're antibacterial, and honestly, you could probably wear them for a week, and they would, and so.
Good thing I'm single.
Yeah, and so, but you can wear them from the gym to a night out and not worry about them stinking.
And cold water, not warm, or like what the temperature of the water to wash them in, does that matter? Because I always just wash them cool, but cold.
Cold's better than hot.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, that's pretty. Yeah. I want to talk about the 501c3. You guys do a lot of donation stuff, which I think is super cool. That, if I understand it right, anyone could try a free pair, and then after they're done with it, donate it and basically show you guys the receipt, right? Like Goodwill or something. They donate it, and then is that how it kind of works? Or
yeah, people can try the box to be free, and if they don't like it or love it, then we don't want it because you tried it. But there are people that need that. They need underwear. I mean, so there's other companies saying other products are the most requested items of clothing at homeless shelters or wherever, but it's actually underwear, clean underwear. So for those small people, small sort of number of people who actually cancel the trial, yeah, those get donated, but most people will order more, and then eventually we set you up on a subscription plan, membership plan, where we're sending you underwear whenever you like at a wholesale price, and so there are ways actually to get it cheaper, and ways to do that is to donate or recycle your other underwear, and to if you dispose of them properly, because the textile waste problem is also a huge problem in the U.S. And so just kind of putting a small dent on that and getting people aware of how they might not be disposing things properly and affecting their communities and the environment at large. So we highly recommend. We'd love to give you a discount for donating or at least recycling used underwear.
I love it. I think that's super cool. And so, say if someone wants to do a one-time purchase of 6 pairs or 12 pairs, can they get a bulk discount then still? Or
yeah, so the prices go down as you order more, and so that the wholesale price, the lifetime price, that clicks in when you order a 6 or 12 pack after the first trial.
Right on. I recommend people get at least 6. I mean, I have a lot, and if you maintain them, they'll last for a while. But they're pretty much all I wear at this point. They're super comfortable. And on the top of your website, all profits are going towards the research of the health effects of 5G on children. Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, so we're setting up a nonprofit. We haven't started the organization yet, but we're allocating funds for that purpose to research 5G health effects on children, and then develop solutions in terms of either policy solutions or products or whatever is the most highly impactful solution to that. And that's actually the reason why we're doing this is to protect people and for humanity. And if that means having some sort of government sponsored research to help us with this endeavor, then we're more than happy to partner with government and also pediatricians who are probably not so much down the alternative health sort of path, but they're slowly but surely moving in that direction, at least the more smarter ones.
Very cool. I love it. And then last thing, any plans for future products, or anything in the works? And I have a lot of women ask me, where are the women's options? And just wanted to touch on that because your products are only for males at this point, right?
Yes. Yeah, there could be bra in the future. So the ovaries they're well protected inside the body, and there isn't a lot of studies showing how EMF affects the bodies. There are some that show the effects on pregnant women, and there are companies that make products for pregnant women, maternity wear, and highly recommend those for pregnant women. But our next product will most likely be a Wi-Fi router or some sort, or we're not sure yet, or willing to disclose that. But we're totally focused on underwear and growing underwear for the next year or two, and then launching our next thing as time comes.
That's super cool. Yeah, I've heard that fat is actually an insulator for EMFs. Not to say, go and eat a cheesecake every day and become overweight, but the testes are outside the body and the ovaries are inside. And not to say the ovaries are completely protected, but they're more protected than the testes. It's just a thin layer of tissue and it's outside the body. So that kind of makes sense.
Right. Yeah. That's another reason why the scrotum is more vulnerable because of the skin, the nature of the skin. It's more thin, and there's no fat to protect, and so they're oftentimes wet. The ball sack is sweaty, and so that exacerbates the conduction, and the fabric also helps with that.
I've seen a lot of carnivores now eating like Rocky Mountain oysters, like, testicles of different bison tests. I'll say I'll never do that. That's too weird for me.
I've never tried those, yeah, but I might.
I guess it'd be a source of testosterone. I don't know. I'd rather get it from pine pollen or something.
Yeah.
But on that note, we can end it. So where can people find you?
They can find us on Faradays.co, which is our Instagram handle and our website. They can find me personally at a.d.matos on Instagram. And I'm willing to, if any of your audience wants to reach out directly, I'm happy to help them or answer any questions. It's Antonio at Faradays.co. Awesome.
Well, thanks for coming on.
And you have a promo code too, right?
Yeah. It's Blackburn for 10% off, I believe. So if you use the discount code Blackburn, you guys could save a little bit. And support the show, support what Antonio is doing. I think it's super cool. And you have my full support. Really appreciate your product.
Awesome. Yeah, it was awesome being able to speak with you and about our product and about our journey.
Right on, man. Well, stay on. I'm going to close out the show.
All right.
Pretty cool technology. I like that Antonio chose organic bamboo as the base of the briefs, and then that 10% EMF shielding shield tech Super, super cool stuff. I think this is a great gift, ladies, for your boyfriend or your husband, especially if you live in an apartment complex. I think that's where the worst non-native electromagnetic field exposure comes, when you're not only in the city, but you're in an apartment complex where you have no control of the person above you and around you. And usually there's 15, 20 Wi-Fi signals in an apartment. So that is really damaging to the tissues, organs, glands, the blood, the entire body. I think we really underestimate the damage that EMFs can cause. So this is a really simple solution. And the cool thing about Antonio's company is you could actually try a pair for free. So if you just want to order one, you don't have to pay a penny. It's just sent to you for free. Pretty cool. And then for future briefs, if you want to get more, you can use the discount code Blackburn and you save 10%. So if you'd like to try a pair, you can head over to faradays.co. That's FARADAYS.co. Or you can also check it out and other products on my website, matt-blackburn.com. Today's quote is by Nikola Tesla. All that was great in the past was ridiculed, condemned, combated, suppressed, only to emerge all the more powerfully, all the more triumphantly from the struggle.